This is VOCM Open Line.
Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626.
The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Hello, everyone. Tim Powers in here, sitting in this week. It's been a while since I've done Open Line, so bear with me because Lord knows I'm going to make a few mistakes. A few may just be in the first half an hour. More will follow afterwards, but great to be here. Great to be with you in this first week of March. Yes, first week of March. Can you believe that already when weather has been the dominant story in the province since basically January? And then if you were just listening to the news, you heard Richard share the great bit of information that it's going to be one of the coldest weeks of the year. Well, I have proof of that. About half an hour ago, as I was getting ready to come on the air, I let one of my cats out. And the cat came back, because they always do, in about 10 seconds. The sun was out. The cat's little guns weren't quite out. Its paws and its fur inflated because it was freezing cold out there. And I'm not quite where you are, but it's cold all across the country today. So get ready for that. Hope the snow clearing is going well. Before getting into a few of the topics we can get into today, I got to read you this headline because hey, it's cold, but this warmed my heart and pointed out and reminded me that, hey, we've got a great thing happening in Newfoundland, in St. John's, the Briar. And this is a headline from Curling Canada. They write, the other home team raises the roof at the 2026 Montana's Briar. With only 3 days into the 2026 Montana's Briar, Nathan Young has already accumulated a lifetime of memories. The 23-year-old skip from Newfoundland and Labrador champions from St. John's, who are officially sharing host team duties with this year with their club mates, Team Brad Gouju, added to those memories in dramatic fashion Sunday afternoon at the Mary Brown Centre. In the last game on the ice, with nearly all of the sellout crowd still in the house and a national television audience watching on TSN, Young coolly navigated a tricky port to remove stone shot belonging to Prince Edward Island's team Tyler Smith and scored a winning 3 in the 10th end for a crowd-pleasing 9-8 triumph. With the win, Young and his team moved to 2-1 in the opening weekend, and only ahead of them are Canadian skip Brad Jacobs and some other Brad, what's his name? Gushu. This is awesome. What a way to start the opening weekend of Briar. And hey, if it's going to be cold and awful, yeah, I know that it's hard to get tickets, but the Briar Patch is open. Let's cheer this on. This is a great thing happening in this province right now. Great that two of our teams in the early part of the competition are doing well. We love our curling in the province. So go Brad, go Nathan, go everybody with those teams. Wouldn't it be awesome if we ended up with an all Newfoundland and Labrador final? Not to jinx the lads, not trying to do that, but boy, that'd be something to look forward to, because looking forward is pretty important. What a weekend it was. Let's start with the international stuff because it's hard not to. And you know, if I'm sitting in here, we're going to talk a little bit more about broader political things, and you can tell me you don't like that, and that's great, and I'll listen to you, but I'm going to start with that. Iran, as you know, U.S. forces and Israeli forces attacked Iran on the weekend, on Saturday, early Saturday morning. Canada supported the attack, as in led words and a moral support to it. We have no military equipment in the fight, to the best of my knowledge, and so says the Prime Minister. The expressed public reason for the attack was to prevent Iran from enhancing its military capacity. We have already seen the death of the Iranian leader Khomeini and 40 other leading Iranian officials. We have lost 3 U.S. servicemen, to the best of my knowledge, and numerous other civilians. This is a huge moment in the world, as is any action in the Middle East, because of the downstream consequences for all of us. The Iranian regime, whoever is leading it now, is threatening to retaliate against the United States. They are already retaliating against Israel. There are many, many Iranian Canadians in our country who have very distinct views on regime change, and some who don't support it. So we're watching all of that. Some criticism of the Prime Minister for jumping on board and supporting the U.S. right away. Former Foreign Affairs Minister Lloyd Axworthy offering a little bit of that criticism, saying that the U.S. is not really adhering to the rule of law. And as it relates to oil, you heard this, you may have heard this earlier, but certainly if the Middle Eastern oil supply is shut down, that will have an impact on the price of oil, will have an impact on the Newfoundland and Labrador economy and the opportunities that exist for us. So watching that, you have any things you want to add to that? You want to talk about that? Please do. We're going to try and have a pretty respectful conversation around this, or we will have a respectful conversation around this on this program, but it is one thing we most certainly want to watch. A little closer to home, and we'll have our friend Zach Power on later to preview the throne speech, but we have the Newfoundland and Labrador throne speech coming up today. You heard Richard mention that in the news. I believe it's 2 o'clock. Will be read by Lieutenant Governor Joan Marie Aylward. What will be in that speech? In the news, you hear the Premier saying that they will try and, well, he is not saying trying, he's saying they will live up to the commitments they made during the election campaign. One of those commitments is better access to health care. And while every government has said that, making that a reality can sometimes be pretty difficult. We have seen some tough, truthful accounts come out of the province in the last few days about people and their dilemmas. One I saw related to a gentleman who was in a hospital unit at a room at St. Clair's, and the window was not working and cold air was blowing in. He had 7 blankets, couldn't be kept warm, and that was impacting his care, as you would rightly appreciate it was. You saw another story done by the CBC of a gentleman who had a heart attack while waiting in the ER, going back and forth between ERs. Look, it is a laudable thing to want to fix health care. It is not an easy thing to do. And I think while we want to support any government that tries, we're going to hold them to account too, because there's words and then there's deed. The Premier and the government, as is their right, made a big change in healthcare leadership most recently, putting in a new head of the Healthcare Authority. How will that impact what happens and where this all goes? Minister Evans, the health minister, has a lot of responsibility. Absolutely, she's an extremely capable person, but a lot of portfolios on her plate. Hard to see how she can easily prioritize them. Will that have an impact on all of that? We'll watch all of that. We'll watch for the opposition's response. Love to hear your calls, your take on all of this, because it is you who's the end user here. You who stay in emergency rooms, who want to get care for yourself and for your family. What do you think is possible? What do you want to hear this afternoon? We'll get a preview from Zach, but want to hear from you on what you think. Got to do a couple of shout-outs here as well, too. Speaking of achievements in Newfoundland and Labrador, the Junior Achievement of Newfoundland and Labrador has announced this year's honorees. Look at that. See, I think I got that right. For the Business Hall of Fame, they include former owner of this radio station, well-known businessman John Steele. He's the CEO of Long Play Capital and Steele Hotels. He owns the Jag. He's a huge promoter of music in this province. He does many, many incredible things. He and his late mother, who also played a significant role in Steele Hotels, Catherine, going into the Hall of Fame. Well deserved. Having known John's dad a little bit, Harry, the wonderful Harry Steele, I'm sure he'd be extremely proud of both of them. So congratulations to them both. Brian Chafe, old hockey teammate of mine, who ran PAL for a very long time, CEO at de Havilland Canada, rightly getting acknowledged, going into the Hall of Fame. Good to see him there. And Regina McCarthy and her son Mark McCarthy, an old rugby teammate of mine. Listen, just to be clear, me knowing all of these people was probably a death knell for everything else in their lives. It had nothing to do with getting to the Hall of Fame. It's just great to see so many people I know going into the Hall of Fame who earn it. The McCarthys with McCarthy's Party, one of the great tourism operations in this province. All wonderful and great to see them heading in there. Okay. What else do I got for you? Congratulations to them. I've got some calls, but I'm going to wait for a second because I want to drop a couple of other things into the conversation. That is RSPs. You know, today's the deadline. If you can make an investment, please do that. There are limits. They're spoken about in the RSP filing guidelines, which you can find on CRA. I think you have until midnight to do that. So look at that. Last one before I go to Charlie, and that is this. This for me is really fascinating because as somebody who deals with the management of cholesterol and worries about it in his own child, the universal cholesterol screening for children could reduce heart attack and stroke risks in adulthood, says the Canadian Pediatric Society. Canadian Pediatric Society is recommending universal screening for all children between the ages of 2 and 10 to protect against cardiovascular disease. Dr. Michael Corey, a pediatric cardiologist and associate professor at the University of Alberta, says the foundations of heart disease are laid in childhood. He says high cholesterol levels in children are usually clinically silent but easy to detect with simple blood tests. 1 in 300 Canadians have familial hypercholesterolemia, genetic condition that contributes to lifelong severe cholesterol elevations from childhood. Glad that this screening now exists because it can make a difference, as we know in Newfoundland and Labrador, because we hear way too many stories about high cholesterol and heart disease. If there is another opportunity, particularly to detect the disease and manage it at a young age, this is an important tool. All right, I am finished my morning rant. I'm going to go to somebody I haven't talked to in a long time, and that is my friend Charlie. I know Charlie always is thinking globally. Charlie, you want to talk Iran? How are you, my friend?
Good morning. I'm doing fine, and it sounds like you are too.
Well, I was smarter than the cat, Charlie. I didn't run out. I just stayed in because I listened to the weather forecast. She didn't have that benefit. Anyway, go ahead, buddy.
Okay. I'll leave you with a quote before I start.
Okay.
I like this quote. It says, "Reality is an acquired taste," and that would explain all the drinking and the drugs and everything in our society today. I'll leave it at that for that one.
or how President Trump makes policy. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we look at the Middle East. I had somebody ask me yesterday, why is there always so much trouble over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to answer that question, so I'll briefly go back. When Israel was created as a state, that's pretty well, and after decolonization, of course, the colonial powers left, that's pretty well the answer to the question as a beginning. They were given a tract of land, and the Palestinians were given one. I think it was called the Palestinian Mandate. And the Arabs, of course, it was done over their heads. They wanted no part of that. In the beginning, the nations there are the Palestinian people. So there was a war that started in, I think it was 48. And after the Jews wiped out the few Arabs, they had a very ineffective army. They pretty well took over the section that they had. They drove out a lot of the Arabs there and removed a lot from the Palestinian area. It was, I'll call it almost a genocide, close to it. And their argument was, if we have that many Arabs, Palestinians living here, we cannot have a true Jewish state. So that was the beginning of the big thing that the Arabs, the Palestinians wanted, was the right of return, and that's still there. All of that leads up to the wars that were fought there, basically about the same thing. What happened with that creation, and the Iran thing. If you look at beginnings there, in the 50s they had a democratic government in Iran because they're a fairly well-developed nation even then, and the CIA deposed that guy. and put in their own lackey, the Shah.
The Shah of Iran.
I know you remember all this.
Yep.
And the Shah turned out to be a very bad man, corrupt, killed a lot of people, innocent people, and that led to, of course, the Iranian Revolution, where the religious crowd came in, and they were just as bad as the Shah, or worse. So if you look back in history, things that are done in a vacuum. There's always some reasons behind this. And now Trump thinks he can go in and bomb his way to a new regime, a democratic regime. It's easy to go in and destroy things. We proved that in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam to some extent, and all of these ended up to be a mess. He has no plans for what happens next other than to wipe out bases and so on. That's not going to change any government. So I'll predict a period of chaos, something similar to the Iraqi thing. I don't know if you want to comment on any of this. One more point.
Yep.
It went to his head when he went in Venezuela and took out that leader. He thought, "Oh my God, this is easy." And of course, there was a Venezuelan government in place, and that makes Iran totally different from Venezuela. But in his head, he can just go in and destroy things, blow it up, and then what comes next, he has no clue. Anyway, this is a summary for you.
Well, no, and very good summary. Some contested points in there about genocides and the like, but we don't have time to get into all of that. You talk about I think what you were referring to in 1917 is the Balfour Declaration that the British made that carved out the territory for a Jewish homeland. And then you're right, all kinds of contestation out of that, the right of return. Remember all of that very well. But let me go where you finished, and then we got to go to break. And that is, everything I've read so far, Charlie, reflects just what you said, that Trump has no end game plan. Now, I'm sure within the United States military and the United States industrial complex, there is some end game plan, whether that will be brought forward or not. It seems they're wishing and hoping that a democratic rebellion will happen in Iran, and people themselves will govern there, because ultimately that is best, because as you rightly point out, long-term occupations and or quick military air raids, with certain exceptions, never work. Anyway, gotta leave it there, Charlie. Good to talk to you. I'm on all week. Maybe we'll talk later in the week. Thank you.
Just on that point about I use a genocide, that's probably a strong word, but they did remove about half the population, and when you do that, you can give that many names, but that's the root of a lot of what happened there.
Yeah, and look, you're always a very reasonable fellow. I just want to be careful if we're going to use that term on the air today. We understand what it means, and I know you do. All right, Charlie, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, hang on, Walter and Harry. We're going to go to Councillor Greg Noseworthy. He's got a snow update for us. I know you want to hear that. Back in a moment here on Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Hello, everybody. Tim Powers hosting Open Line this week. Well, I have to tell you this before I go to Greg Noseworthy. Probably won't shock you. And my old classmates at St. Bon's, they won't be shocked by it either. Sometimes getting the obvious in the past took me a bit of time. I would say it's still the case. And I remember a conversation I had years ago with Bob Hurst. Bob Hurst used to run CTV News. And we were talking about, things I love in the news and the things that drive the news. And he said weather was number one. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's a bit strange. But then I realized it is so obvious, having grown up in Newfoundland and Labrador, and seeing that weather is driving us nuts, perhaps. Snow. We've had a lot of that. And to talk about snow removal is Greg Noseworthy. Greg is the Ward 3 Councillor. Greg, boy, you've been pretty busy the last 6 or 7 weeks, because it seems every week there's been a snowfall. Broke the February record for snowfall. What is the update today, Greg?
Well, I tell you hit the nail on the head there with busy, and it's keeping me out of trouble. Some days putting me into it, but but that's okay. We take it in stride, right? It's been a wild one, and obviously February's come and gone now. We're into March, and we've got the official record, 178.2 at the airport. Of course, we had higher amounts. I know, it's unbelievable. That's about 55% of our total annual snowfall in less than 3 weeks. So, and of course, because the bulk of it started midway through February. So it's been quite the number of weeks here. We're on top of it, thankfully. It's going to take time still, but I got to say, I was out with crews this weekend and chatting with them, seeing them kind of just continue to clear up things, and it was great to see where we've moved on to clearing fire hydrants now too, to just make sure that the city is opening up as quickly and as safely as it possibly can. 1,400 kilometers of roads and laneways.
That's a lot of road.
It's taking time, but we're getting there.
Is it going in the harbor? That all got sorted out with the federal government? You're dumping it in the harbor still? Where is it being dumped, Greg? All over the place?
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. I think it's there's a number of snow storage spots everywhere, and obviously there's still a lot of snow on roads and people's lawns. Some areas, thankfully, are able to take a little bit more on their yards, so we are able to push back and blow back some of that. But most places are at near full capacity or over capacity. So you're seeing these corner lots. There are a number of spots that contractors have set up for dumping sites, or if you're around some of the larger city properties, like soccer fields, those types of places that are easily accessible, you'll see some more snow there than normal. And of course, there's always the Avalon Mall snow pile that everyone keeps talking about.
Be careful; they might regulate that. They might regulate that like they do in Quebec. Listen, we've got a ton of calls and messages at VOCM about community mailboxes being blocked by snow. What can you tell us about that? Why is that happening? Are you working to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So mailboxes are handled by Canada Post, which of course is under federal jurisdiction. So we are separate from it. However, I recognize that it's very important for people to have access to their mail, whether it's to get their checks or otherwise. We want to make sure those are open up, of course. So I spoke with MP Tom Osborne's office over the last couple of days, and his office has assured me that they're following up with Canada Post, and they'll be opening those up as quickly as possible as well. So thankfully, that will be addressed.
That will be addressed. But ultimately, if people are irritated about that, it is not you they should call, it is the federal government, because they are federal properties?
It is federal jurisdiction, yeah, that's right. So Canada Post is under the federal government. So unfortunately, we don't clear it from the city's perspective, but Canada Post does maintain contractors, which, of course, as everybody knows, they've been inundated with jobs, whether it's the city of St. John's hiring additional contractors or other contractors that folks are hiring for businesses or their own personal snow clearing. So, I don't want to say when they'll get out. Ultimately, it not being the city's neck of woods, but I would say they'll be getting to it sooner than later as more and more efforts to clear things kind of continue, right?
All right. Well, you haven't gone to the New York model. I think they're giving people $30 an hour to go out and shovel snow. We're not going down that route yet, are we, Greg?
Hopefully not yet. We'll hold that in our cards, of course. Like all options, I always say all options are on the table, but we don't need to get to that stage just yet.
All right. Thank you for the update. Hopefully by the time we're at the end of March, we haven't set a snow record, but it's March in Newfoundland and Labrador, so that could happen. Appreciate the call, Greg.
You got it, sir. Take care. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. That is Greg Noseworthy, Ward 3 councillor. Let's go to Harry, who's been standing by, because Harry was calling about the community mailboxes being blocked. Harry, what do you think of Councillor Noseworthy's answer?
Yeah, I pretty much knew that, but the only thing is, I'm here in Milborough, and our mailbox, you can only see the corner of the mailbox. Now,
really?
Wow.
Our street has been snowblowed and widened since probably, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday at least last week. So I know at first they were saying the streets were too narrow, but our street, the snowblower went up here 4 or 5 days ago. And you can't even see the box. You just see one little corner there now. In fact, I put a picture on the Community of Powers fan there last week of it. Didn't even know where it was. But, I mean, I got, not that I get much mail because I try to stay fair, I can't post as much as I can, but I'm expecting some T4 that's there, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on the street that are expecting probably light bills, phone bills, that kind of stuff. So 2 weeks is a long time with no mail.
You're making a good point too about tax season, right? Like there's a lot of stuff comes electronically, but a lot of it doesn't anymore. And if you're trying to get your taxes filed on time, yes, we still have a little bit of time to do it personally, obviously. But a lot of people like to file early. They like to get the benefit of filing early, and if they can't get in and get that, or they can't get in and get their bills, I don't know how empathetic some might be. Have you seen anybody get into the boxes at all, Harry?
Yeah, most of the boxes are done. The boxes on the main streets are done, and I have seen a lot of most of them, but I don't know, maybe they forgot us. I don't know. I'm the one I called us at.
Well, we'll stay on top of it. Appreciate the call, Harry. Thanks very much for giving us an update on what's going on in the Pearl with the mailboxes. Always welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. All right, I'm going to take this call quickly, Beth, because I know Walter's been hanging around there. See, Walter, in the summer, I was having terrible issues with raccoons, and I put a call out about that, and Walter gave me some good advice. Walter, your advice worked. They basically went away, but see, I got this mother of a raccoon, like massive raccoon, is always gulling around for food. So whatever trick I have, she, as most female animals do, figures it out and overcomes and does something else. So I'm all ears. If you got any more, it's too cold now, thankfully. They aren't around right now, but any more raccoon advice is welcome.
No, Tim, that was that was about 2 or 3 years ago when you were complaining about raccoons in your yard, and I think I called in. I used to live in Ontario. In fact, I lived in Ottawa for a while, but we had problems with raccoons in the backyard. And I think what I told you was put a light underneath your back deck and put it on a timer. Set the timer for 9 o'clock at night. When it starts to get dark, the light comes on, and that keeps them away. And in the morning at 7 o'clock, the light goes off again. And after that, we didn't have problems. And ever since telling you that, I've often wondered, what the hell did Tim do, and did it work? So
it did work. I did do it, and I have.
Just to find out.
Well, I'm glad you did. I also have this other overhead light, but you're right. You need to get the raccoons right in the eyes or at their level where they're going there, because if not, they're so brazen. It is funny. They will come in. They don't care.
Come on, they're vicious. They're vicious little buggers.
And they're not.
And they'll go nuts. But
well, and this one wasn't little, let me tell you. Anyway, great diversion from all the snow. Walter, thank you for the tip.
If you don't mind me asking, where do you live in the Ottawa area?
I live in the Westboro part of Ottawa.
Okay, I used to live in Bronson and Somerset and Bytown. It's kind of a neat city at certain times in your life. But anyhow, I just thought I'd pass that on to you, and I was always curious about if you did anything about them and if it worked. Anyhow,
it did,
luck,
and
Jim.
Thank you, Walter. Appreciate the call. There you go. See,
okay.
Thank you, Walter. The value of open line. We can talk Iran, and we can talk getting rid of raccoons. What do you want to talk about? Give us a call. Time for a break here on Open Line. Back with more calls in a moment.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Let me read you a little bit of a post from my next guest, and then we'll bring him on. The post starts, looking for help in identifying the guardian of a white and brindle young, 1 year apparently, pit bull with a distinctive prong, inward spiked collar that mauled my leg at Kitty Vitty Lake Dog Park yesterday evening around 5:30 p.m., leading to a violent confrontation with my large black Newfoundland dog. That post is from Diego Medina. Diego joins us. Diego, sorry this happened to you. You got 8 stitches. Tell us about this and what you're hoping to do here.
Thank you. I'm just trying to basically locate that the owner of that dog, the guardian or caretaker for that particular dog, to avoid any kind of future incidents like that with that particular dog. I mentioned in that post as well that we're lucky that there wasn't any children around or any other people that sort of had to intervene. I had to intervene because my dog and that dog were basically going at it. My dog was trying to after the dog bit me, after I had separated the two, the dog bit me, and then my dog tried to pin the other one down. So because
dog doing what it does, protects its owner. That sounds like a very natural thing to do.
Yeah, it was a protective mode thing, and he's by any means not he's not a very aggressive dog. He's a big fluffy teddy bear, but he when you put him in that position, I guess they do what they do, right? Anyhow, I'm just looking to try to avoid any further that dog should be held protected better, or I don't really want to see the dog, like a lot of people are telling me, oh, you should see this dog get euthanized, or and I'm like, no, I don't, I love dogs. I love pit bulls. I love all kinds of dogs. It doesn't matter the type of dog it is. Even if the dog bit me, I understand that dog probably just got overly excited and was, in like attack mode or whatnot. And bit me. However, it's not really the onus on the dog. It's not the dog's fault. It's
the owner.
It's the owners, and the owners need to take accountability and responsibility for the and for the consequences that their dogs leave, because those particular dogs they have a really, I guess you could call it a gift, but it's also it's a weapon. As they are, they have a really strong bite, and they're kind of like programmed in their instincts to, kill. So it's a hard thing. And again, I have nothing against pit bulls. I just know the way that they are made and the way that they are, and it's a beautiful, beautiful creature, but again, super dangerous in the wrong context, in the wrong situation.
Diego, the dog was leashed or unleashed, though?
It was at the dog park at the Kitty Vitty dog park.
So the dog is in the dog park. Just so people know, dogs can run freely as long as they're supervised by their owner. Correct?
Yeah, it's in a fenced, closed fenced area, but it's it's quite large, so the dog can get a chance to get a run in, and they all usually play together really well. This one in particular.
So what did the owner do, Diego? The woman, because it is a woman you've identified as an owner. You can look at Diego's post. What did she do when this was happening?
Well, she at first, when the dogs, when the dog first came in, I was right next to the gate because all the dogs come sort of they come like a greeting committee when people come in, new people come in, and all the dogs come to see the new dog that comes in, and I noticed this guy was he had this really kind of I don't agree with these prong collars, but it was a super sharp, pointy parts that go inwards towards the neck. So if they haul on their collar, or if they haul on their leash, the spikes poke them, and I would say
choker collar of sorts, isn't it?
It's kind of like a choker, but instead of choking, it sends like a spike into their neck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It looks like a medieval torture device, to be honest. I don't think people should put those on their dogs. Anyways, I came in, I saw that dog come in with that, and I was like, oh my God, people should not be using those. But the dog came in, and then he sort of sniffed around and went and played with they started, he ran off, and they all started playing, and the owner was there just sitting, seemed like a nice enough lady. And then the dog just kind of started to get a little bit aggressive, and my dog he's also kind of a puppy. He's only almost 2 years old, but he's a young Newfoundland dog by any means, and loves to play and is super friendly, and all these kinds of things. But this other dog, I guess, got a little bit had some issues, and started kind of growling at him, and jumped on him and was going for his neck, and then that's when I intervened and got bit.
So on the getting, I just to get into it for a sec. So you got 8 stitches. I assume you got a shot as a consequence of that. How are you feeling?
I did.
I'm all right as long as I don't step on my leg too much. Like it's really, really painful. It's a bit. It's been difficult. Like I'm now kind of a little incapacitated. Luckily, I'm on a little break from work, so I don't have to like be out and about too much. I'm working from home a lot, so it's easier for me to do this and get along with life. But the stitches,
there's the consequence. There's a consequence to it all. Did the owner of the pit bull, as I read your note, you didn't really want to engage too much at that moment in time, but
no.
Have you put your post out yesterday? Have you gotten any reaction from anybody who may know who the owner is, anything like that, or they're keeping their head down at the moment?
Most people are. I don't know. Like I've received. This is kind of wild, but I've received like a ton of, sympathy notes and all that kind of stuff, which is very nice. But at the same time, that's not really what the post was meant for.
Yeah.
I don't really require sympathy, although it's again very appreciated and super nice. I'm trying to find this person because there's a whole bunch of like consequences. I have to report to like insurance. I have to report to like all these. I have to report to the police, and we have to get a name. We have to get that person's name so that they can, do their thing. I don't want that person to be in trouble. I don't want the dog to be in trouble. I'm just hoping that we can keep that dog out of dog parks or. And be happy with their owner. That's fine. Or be happy with, whoever their guardian is. And they can, stay within their own boundaries. But I think it's, if I had my little daughter there, I would have been. This is like,
listen, and I think I'm not going to read the description of the person on the radio, not because I don't respect what you're doing. I think I'll drive people to your post. I don't want this program to turn into America's Most Wanted, and I'm no John Walsh. But I think what you're doing is very responsible. You're looking for a responsible solution because, as you say, a lot of people would push for the euthanization of the pit bull. So if somebody knows this woman, you can read Diego's post to see the description. Please get in touch because it sounds like people are trying to do reasonable things here to find an accommodation. Diego, I'm sorry about your leg. I'm glad you and your dog, though, are ultimately okay, and I hope your next visit to the dog park, because Kitty Lake Dog Park's a nice spot, is not as notable.
Yeah.
Not as notable. Thank you for sharing your story, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, that is Diego. As I said, his post you can find. Let me just get it for you before we go to break. Diego Medina, he is on Twitter. There's a description of the owner there in question. Again, I'm not John Walsh. This isn't America's Most Wanted, but if you can help Diego and find a good constructive solution here and help that owner and help the dog, let's do it. Otherwise, let's take a break. Back with more of Open Line in a moment.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
It's funny about pit bulls, just before we go to our next guest, because they're still in my mind having listened to Diego. What was it? 2 weeks ago, I was at the dentist, and the hygienist who was poking around at my old beaten-up teeth was going through a crisis with her pit bull, funny enough. There was one of her pit bulls who, if you can believe this, had prostate cancer, and the pit bull was a rescue, and she was asking me, because I said, look, family history, mother ran the SPCA, all of this. We got into a long conversation. It was going to cost about $4,000 to save her pit bull, who she described as tender and loving. I've heard all manner of stories of description of pit bulls, and I could tell, at least from this owner, and I'm not judging the owner that Diego had the encounter with. People can do that, but at least this pit bull owner that I encountered, loving, caring, and as she described her dogs, even though they were pit bulls and they're supposed to be little terrors, according to some, he was a magnificent dog. I must follow up and see if they did do the prostate cancer surgery, and that was a first for me. I didn't know dogs could get prostate cancer. You're always learning things, and probably will learn something from this conversation. Happy to be joined by Brian Keating. Brian is the former mayor of Marystown. He was a Liberal candidate in the last election. Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Mr. Powers, for having me on today.
Great to have you on. What's on your mind?
Well, it's been well over 100 days now since the outcome of the election, and I wanted to wait a little while till they got feedback on the ground. But my biggest thing today, I wanted to reach out to all the people that I met during my campaign when I ran for the MHA for Central West Bellevue. I can't believe how many good people I met and how thankful I am to meet most of those people. You have some people you get trials and tribulations as you go door to door. But people says to me, Brian, it was a very close election. How do you feel the outcome? Of course, you weren't happy with the outcome, but I consider myself a winner because I'd like to say to the people out there in the district especially how much I enjoyed talking to everybody, even on some of the things we didn't agree upon. But the reason I consider myself a winner, Tim, is that I got to meet people on this beautiful island that I would never got to meet if I didn't put my name forward and go door to door. It was a phenomenal experience. And I
tell people, Brian, let me interrupt you for a sec because you hit a point that I always find fascinating. With all the technology we have today, Facebook campaigns, Insta, all the stuff, and yeah, it's important. Door-to-door still matters. And tell us your door-to-door experience because the way you're describing it sounds like it was generally a pretty positive thing.
I'll be honest with you, even when we didn't agree, it was still very positive because I learned things from people that I actually didn't know. Different concerns that you would never got if you didn't get to see the people. And even shaking their hands. And believe it or not, I probably got just as many hugs as I did getting handshakes, and I'm a hugger. But I will tell you, I really appreciate it with people that come right out and said, listen, I can't vote for your party. I don't know you personally, but you seems like a genuine person. And that made you feel a whole lot even stronger saying that there's still people that are upfront and honest with you. I will tell you right now, I met people from Terrenceville, Grand Lapeer, Bellevue, everywhere I went. Very seldom. I think I might have had 2 people that said you weren't welcome on their step. And that's pretty good when you knocked over 5,000 doors. So the ratio was very good.
Yeah, better than a punch in the face or a knock in the knees. Would you do it again, Brian? Because, look, you've been an elected politician. You've been a mayor, and that's a big job. Would you put your hand up again? Have you thought about that, or are you still kind of just taking it all in? Because 100 days is a bit of time, but it's not a huge time.
No, I'll be honest with you. It's another 3 years or what it would schedule to be another 3 years or plus before. It's a lot of time in between then and now. But the experience I had would definitely not deter me from ever running again. The genuinity of the people I met was phenomenal. But I'll be honest, I was the mayor of Marystown for 4 years. It was the best job I had in my whole life. And people laughed. They said, well, the pay wasn't great because there was no pay. But I will tell you this much. I love people, and I love people being honest and straight and listen, this is a business. People don't realize it might be a popularity test when you're getting elected, but to run a province or run a town, it's a business. And sometimes business makes decisions that are not popular with everybody. But I will tell you this much. The town of Marystown and all the towns on the peninsula, people used to say, well, one of the things I used to say when I was on the news, and I bet as you are well aware, I always used to speak peninsula. They said, well, you can't pronounce it proper, Brian, but that's okay. And we used to laugh at that. And when you learn to laugh at yourself and laugh at the people, it makes it a whole lot easier.
Well, it makes politics easy. But it does make politics easier. Look, before I let you go, for those of us who aren't in Marystown, what are you hoping to see or hear in the speech from the throne later? Because, again, your peninsula is an area you're dealing with, as a lot of rural Newfoundland is, healthcare challenges. You're dealing still with the on-again, off-again opportunity in the military defense spending. I remember my friend Glenn Tobin for years when Glenn was the MHA, Bill Matthews, Judy, didn't matter what party, always advocating for the Marystown shipyard and making sure there were jobs and they were thought about when major military procurements happen. So throne speech later today, defense opportunities out there. The Premier says he's going to prioritize them. What are you hoping you will hear or see for Marystown, Brian?
Well, we all know that Marystown is the hub of the Bjorn Peninsula, but we're all one town now because we're not big enough to survive by ourselves, and I preach that. And I heard you mention Glen Tobin. Glen Tobin was one of our best MHAs, and of course Judy could help the peninsula. But what I would really like to see is that right now, healthcare and road conditions and stuff are major issues on the Bjorn Peninsula. But with those issues, you need income. And income means work. So we need to get the Cowhead facility, the Mar-Base facility, all those major projects. The mine is going good in St. Lawrence now, but it needs to continue. We all know you need money to survive, and rural Newfoundland will not survive on 250 people. 250,000 people in St. John's. We need to survive on the 8,000 to 10,000 people on the peninsula. So with that, we need work. Mortier Bay needs to be developed. We got one of the best ports and ice-free harbors in the world, second to none. So listen, let's get some more wharfage out here, some more facilities here that can attract people. So, and listen, I ran against the MHA, the PC party, but you know what? Right now they're in power, so you know what? I respect and I hope they will do what they promised in the thing. But right now, to make the peninsulas, both on the Bay of Spear, the Northern Peninsula, and Bjorn Peninsula, we need work. We cannot survive on handouts. And right now, I'd like for them to come out and say, listen, people know the world's in turmoil now with the Trump, I call it the Trump era. But right now, you look at the oil companies and stuff. Right now, we need to be self-sufficient. We need our power. But listen, we had Argentia, Gander, Steveville. They were U.S. ports and U.S. military bases. I'm not against bringing U.S. military bases back here because Argentia was one of the strongest areas on the Gulf during the war. Of course, I got facilities in Argentia. Marystown, we got an ice-free harbor, Mortier Bay. You can't beat those places. So what we need to do is start being more reliant on ourselves instead of looking at handouts.
Brian, well said. It's true. And the best message among all of a set of good messages you just give, we got to work together. We're too small right now to get bogged down by partisan nonsense in this world. Right now, unity of purpose is important. Great to talk to you, Brian. Thanks for calling in.
Can I just say one more quick thing before I leave?
10 seconds, buddy. 10 seconds.
Yeah. I made no promises during the election only I'd be available. I want to tell all the people in my district and the town that I ran in, I'm still available. My number didn't change. You need help with Crown land, anything you need, senior citizens help out, I'm available. Please reach out to me. Thank you so much for taking me on.
You're a good man. Brian Keating, former mayor of Marystown, former Liberal candidate. Great to chat with him. Lots to talk about after the news. We haven't even touched on submarines or what's going on with India, but it's time for the news. Back in a moment after that.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Hello, everyone. Tim Powers in here for the week. Our lines are open, so give us a call if you want. We've got some great stuff coming up a little later in the program. We can have great stuff now, too, if you give us a ring. We have Dr. Janine Hubbard coming on to join us just after 11 o'clock. Janine is the head of the Canadian Psychological Association. She is on our program often, the afternoon program that I do. She is going to talk to us about some new safeguards that are being put in by a couple of social media companies to monitor kids' use of search engines when they search messages about suicide. That's an important topic, always on the top of our minds here at VOCM, so you're going to want to listen to that. We're also going to get our friend Zach on in the next hour or so to talk about the speech from the throne, which is coming up. Are you interested in that? I'm not going to tell you what you should be interested in. You shouldn't be interested in, but I am, because I want to see where the government is going to go. The speech from the throne is usually the key indication by a government of its plan for its legislative session. So what they're going to spend, what they're going to make a priority, where they make changes in service. Though it is read by the Lieutenant Governor, Jo Marie Aylward in this case, as she's the current Lieutenant Governor, it is the Premier's words, actions that he's speaking to, and potential deeds he will do that we will measure him by. So we are going to give that lots of coverage today, tomorrow, over the next few days as we see what it is, hear it, and get reaction to it. We were talking to Brian Keating a moment ago about the military and the opportunity for Marystown. And as long as I've known people from Marystown, they have always, regardless of party stripe, advocated strongly for the Marystown shipyard. And organizations like Kiewit and others have had operations down there. But I think it's fair to say it's never met its full potential, not at least in living memory. So interesting to watch that. But there is a big defense story out there. And that is about submarines. And I know on my program and elsewhere on VOCM, we have talked about the opportunity that may exist in Newfoundland and Labrador for some of the submarine procurement that the federal government is looking at. So, just to update you, the competition to build the Canadian Navy's next fleet of submarines is heading into a new phase after a deadline for both finalists to submit their final proposals to the federal government today. Canada is planning to buy a fleet of up to 12 conventionally powered submarines with the hope of having the vessels in the water by 2032. The multi-billion-dollar procurement is happening at an accelerated pace as the Royal Canadian Navy's aging Victoria-class submarines are set to retire in the next decade. There are two bids from South Korea's Hanwha Oceans and ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems, or TKMS, in a bid that includes Germany and Norway. Stephen Fuhrer, the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement, said in February that Ottawa will likely announce a winner this year. The Liberal government will also made it clear that its decision will rest in part on which proposal provides the most economic and industrial benefits in Canada. I can tell you that from previous conversations, both with MHAs on air and off air, there's a great desire to add to the abilities and capacities of the Hibernia area, the area that was used to build the Hibernia platform. That area in Long Harbour and the like is seen as a valuable potential asset where refit or other bull arm, where other things could be done to help manage the Canadian military fleet. We haven't built submarines in Canada in a very long time. We did have some role in it, but often we've procured them. You will remember that the last procurement of submarines did not go very well for the government. You can remember then Defense Minister Art Eggleton, and this is a long time ago, buying these broken up, leaking diesel submarines from the United Kingdom. So perhaps it is good we are going to buy them. Also in the news, which I want to hope to get a conversation going about, is the Prime Minister's in India. Now, he's getting some criticism for being in India. We talked about this on the morning show this morning because you'll recall it was only about 2 years ago that a Sikh activist was murdered in the Vancouver area in British Columbia. And at the time, then Prime Minister Trudeau and others pointed fingers at the government of India, saying that it was Indian government agents that were involved in this. The then government of India, it's still the same government, Narendra Modi, denied that that was the case before our current Prime Minister went to India. An official on background said that they were less concerned about what was happening in India. Anyway, you want to talk about that, please do. But right now, we are going to go to Craig, status of Canada and the war. Craig, how are you? You there, Craig?
I'm in Bayvert today.
Okay, got you, buddy. You're in Bayvert. How is it cold down there, or what?
Well, it's 7 degrees Fahrenheit. I got to change my thing to Celsius. So let's.
You're living with American temperature standards. All right, that's fitting. Anyway, go ahead, buddy. What you want to talk about Canada and the war in Iran?
Well, kind of, I suppose. I mean, with regards to the war now, and Does Canada want to stay as a whole country, or do we want to separate? I started off as a beaver. I did scouts. I did sea cadets, air cadets. I joined the military. I served in the Canadian Navy and the Australian Navy. I worked on submarines. I don't know if we really need. I don't know if we really need submarines. We should have torpedo, long distance torpedoes to protect our shores. We should be a defense force, not a country that's going to be creating wars such as the U.S. But here in Canada. In Newfoundland, in 1933, we were a dominion. We were our own nation. And I guess you read the book, Don't Tell the Newfoundlanders by Greg Malone?
Yes, I've read parts of it, exactly.
Yeah, now he has a movie out, and it's amazing what the British government and the Canadian government did to Newfoundland to take away our sovereignty, our nation. And we were basically raped off our nation and given to Canada to pay off the Brits' war debt, And Alberta is talking about separation. Quebec talked about separating. Newfoundland was the last in. We should be the first out if we're going to separate. But if we're going to stay as a country, we need some proper leadership in this country and a vision for the country. We need a vision for Newfoundland that's going to bring us all together. Right now, we're all separated and isolated, and we feel that this is the worst time in our generation, in generations for generations. And something drastically needs to change. We cannot still follow these agendas of organizations that have nothing to do with our province or our country. We're being destroyed from outside, and it's coming inside now.
Well, it's interesting, Craig. Sorry, just to quickly interrupt you for a second. Appreciate all your points. I had the other afternoon, I had a guy by the name of John Wright on, and he's a pollster, and he did a poll on separation because, as you know, in Alberta, there's a lot of talk of this. In Quebec, there's a lot of talk of this. It was interesting in Atlantic Canada. Just to challenge your comment on how big the separatist feeling is, he had over 90% of people in Atlantic Canada wanted to stay in Canada. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm not saying you're wrong and people being frustrated and angry and feeling like we got ripped off on different things, but I don't know how pronounced the separatism is. But I'll give you a minute to talk to that, and then I got to take a break, Craig.
Well, obviously there's a few people that don't like the current situation. If we can be our own nation, just like Qatar, they only got a population, they got a population of 2.9 million, but it's only 300,000 that are actually citizens. They don't make everybody that comes into your country a citizen. When I joined the military, there was only about 18, 20 million people in Canada. Now we have 44. A majority of people in Canada are not natural-born Canadians, and they get to have a say about our future. All
right, Beth, Craig, I'm going to stop there. Listen, I think let's be careful there. Look, we all actually weren't natural-born Canadians. We all came here. You don't actually get to vote in Canada unless you have a permanent residency or a citizenship status. So, look, appreciate perspective. I think it's this aspect of it. I would say we have a very different view on it, but I got to leave it there. Thank you for your call today, Craig. All right. When we come back, I think Jessica McCormick's going to join us, and we got another call about raccoons. Back with that in a moment here on the Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Tim Powers here, and I'm with Beth Fagan. And by the way, Beth's saying we're getting lots of calls, but not everybody wants to come in air. Beth and I are nice people. We'll take your perspective. I may fight back from time to time or disagree with you, but that's part of the Open Line. I'll do it respectfully. If you get a little too far out of line, I might have to act more forcefully. But you know what? That's what this show's about. Good conversation, different perspectives, and it's all for you. But we're going to go back to a familiar topic this morning because on March 2nd, because I started it, or I guess my friend Walter started it, but it originates with me, we're back to the raccoons. It's like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Jim, you want to talk about the raccoons? What do you got, my friend?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, sir.
I was listening to the part about the light.
Yeah.
The light outside doesn't bother them at all. We have 2 floodlights out here and 2 on the deck, and we look after 42 raccoons a year.
Oh, my goodness.
And, we feed them all summer long and look after the babies, and they come and go as they please, and we haven't seen them now since... We haven't seen them now since the 1st of December, and they won't be out now because of the snow until probably, I would say, late March before we start to see them. And but I've been doing this for 26 years.
Yeah, how did you get into that, Jim? How did you get into caring for raccoons? Because, I mean, we all have the cuddly version. They can, if you look at them, but they could be menaces. As I said, I've got this big, tough mother raccoon, and my cats are afraid of her. She protects her babies. But how did you get into caring for raccoons?
My late wife did it back, but she passed away in 2003, and anyway, we started doing it the 1st of January of 2000, and we started off with just a handful, but now we're up to 42 right now. But we don't have any problems with them.
Really?
No, they don't defecate or anything around the yard. Everything's all done in the woods, and they all come up and they sit there and they'll sit on the bench with you, and they eat out of your mouth. They're sitting on your shoulders, and we get people coming here from Cyprus, England, Australia,
really,
and all over the states. They come to visit, and they get a hotel room, and we set them up with visits here. And
so where are you, Jim? Where are you located?
I'm in Churchville, Nova Scotia. It's just outside of Glasgow.
Yeah.
And so I'm known as the Raccoon Whisperer on YouTube. and I've got 52 million on my video that went viral. And I've been on every TV show that you could think of. And I had Colleen Jones here.
You didn't you? The late great Colleen Jones. Okay.
Yeah, she was here and did a story on me, and I got her to feed them out there. She just loved it. And she was nervous at first, but I said, no. I said, they won't hurt you. And I had a young girl here from China.
Yeah.
And one of them crawled down on her shoulder, and I said, he's all right. And she was patting him and rubbing his head, and but we've never ever been bitten, ever.
All right.
No, if you corner one, you're mean. Yes, they're going to be like that. But no, they've been very good around the house. They don't do any damage, and my neighbors don't mind. And we have raccoon signs out in the road to look out for. It's raccoon crossing signs.
Oh my God, that's so. Jim, you got to tell me where can I see? Where on YouTube can I find you? Because after the show, I'm going to check this out. Where are you?
All you have to do is just Google Raccoon Whisperer, and I come up in various different places. And Colleen's video will show up there.
All right.
And we've had. Oh my God, we had so many different celebrities here. Just wanted to come up to see them,
All right. Well, I have
very gentle.
Oh, all right. Well, you're converted me. I'm going to go Google you after. I'm so glad you called because I got to move from raccoons to pit bulls right now. But appreciate the call, Jim.
The only time a light works on them is if they're in your attic. Put the light facing the mother of the babies and have loud music, and she'll move them on her own.
All right. Well, I now have a whole repertoire of how to deal with my mother raccoon and her babies. I really appreciate it, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Take care. All right, you will remember that was a great call. We got a call from Nova Scotia about the raccoons. I'm going to check his Jim's stuff out after. Beginning of the show, we talked to Diego Medina about the bite he got from a pit bull in the Kitty Vitty Dog Park. We now have Heidi on the line who wants to talk about that. Heidi, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty pissed, honest. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on air. Can I say that?
Well, you just did, and we didn't bleep you out. But keep the language a bit more PG, Heidi. Why are you angry?
I'll try. So I didn't hear the man speak earlier about the supposed attack, and he got bitten, and he had to get 8 stitches. But I was present, actually. I was a witness
were
to
you?
that. It was on Friday night, or Friday evening, around 6 o'clock, and I was there with my 2 dogs, and from the very get-go, I didn't like the guy's demeanor, and I didn't like how the dog was behaving with the other dogs.
His dog, you mean?
His dog, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first thing that happened was I asked him what kind of dog he had. Or I didn't even say that. I said, what kind do you have? And he said, a dog. And I thought, okay, that's pretty rude and arrogant. So that was fine. And then I said, no, what breed is he? And he said, oh, he's a pure Newfoundland dog. And I thought, well, he doesn't seem pure. He's got these really long, lanky legs. And so he wasn't really conversational. And he was with another lady with a corgi. And so that was fine. And when I saw the lady's pit bull, I said, perfect, another pit bull for Monty to play with. So anyway, two dogs.
And Monty is a pit bull, your dog? Okay.
Yeah, I have a pit bull and a husky.
Okay.
And that's who's crying in the back there now.
I love it, Heidi. Makes the call more real.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm all about the pit bulls. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not the breed. Anyway, it's the humans usually, and this is a pure case of it. Anyway, and so that was fine. I didn't like the human. And then I saw the pit bull, the lady's pit bull, over by a tree sniffing. And the black dog, his black dog, came up alongside and growled. And I didn't like the growl. There's different types of growls, just like kids were crying.
Yep.
And I said, yeah, that's not a good growl. And I should have corrected the dog right there. I'm about corrections. Anyway, I don't care what the owner thinks. I'm not putting up with it. Anyway, I didn't. About 5 minutes later, I hear behind me something going on. A fight, dog fight. I've split up dog fight, so it's not abnormal for me to jump in. But I didn't because I had nobody there to hold my dogs on, and I didn't want Monty getting involved. So that was fine. The only thing I could do was say to the lady, calm down, just breathe. She was trying her best to separate the dogs.
Okay.
And I said to the guy, take your black dog off the pit bull. Take your black dog off the pit bull. And no bye. He came over like kind of casually, didn't say a word, kicking the dogs, but not really doing anything proactive. Like he just wasn't down and into it like she was. She was like screeching and trying her best. And all I could see was the black dog had the pit bull by the jaw, by his jowl. He had a puncture wound in his like back corner of his jaw, and his ear was like bleeding.
Ugh.
The other dog, the black dog, wasn't hurt. It was the pit bull that was hurt, and the pit bull was trying to get away from the black dog, and the black dog would not let go. So if he wants to blame anybody, he can put the blame on himself for not trained to put the work into the dog and not take responsibility when his dog attacked the pit bull. It's not the pit bull's fault. I promise you. I saw it myself, and I wish I had a video to prove it, but it is what it is.
I appreciate you calling in because, as we all know, there's 3 sides to every story, and you've given a side because you're not directly involved in it. We'll keep covering it, and I agree with you on. I go back to this. I said it earlier. Pit bulls have an unfair rap, and it is the owner. If I've learned anything from my mother, who was in the SPCA for 40-odd years, it's usually about the owner. Usually about the owner. I agree with you on that. And Monty, telling me did great on radio. Appreciate you both calling today, Heidi. Thank you.
Thank you for airing my point of view. Thank you.
All right. Good to talk to you. Enjoy your walk. Bye. So there you go. We are getting Battle of the Dog Park played out in real time. You heard Heidi's perspective. You heard Diego's perspective. If you were there, you want to add to it, do. Because, look, it's not just Diego's injury and what happened between the 2 dogs. There's a bigger comment about animals and how we treat each other and respect each other, and it plays out in this story. So if you got something to add, boy, we're here for the next hour and a half. The throwdown at the dog park, it's the topic of the day so far. When we come back, we'll have more on Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Anybody down at the Briar want to give us an update on what's going down there? First stones, I think, were thrown about an hour and a half ago. And as you heard, Team Young's playing, Tim, you're losing your voice already, Team Guju at 7:30 tonight, local time. That ought to be quite the game. It was great last week. I was talking to the MC from the Briar Patch. What a great gig. What a great fellow. Stu Brown. It was his, I believe it was Stu Brown. Brown was his name. I'll just get that correct here. Anyway, Stu had some great stories about what he had seen and experienced at the Briar Patch. He also was around Stu Brown, indeed, got it right. He was around in 2017 when the power went out and they broke along with the sales record getting beaten at the Briar for alcohol, and he said it was just epic. But the best story he had from all his years of doing this, and this goes back to the days when Labatt, it was called the Labatt Tankard, which wasn't yesterday. A lot of the curling fans who are listening today will know that. Well, they're probably watching, so they're not necessarily listening. Hopefully they're streaming us and watching the curling. Anyway, one of Stu's story was he was in the Briar Patch, he was doing an event, and some guy came up dressed as a I think he said a beaver, and he came up and he was quite boisterous and excited. I think he wanted an autograph, got the autograph, turned around, and then guy walked back. He had nothing on behind, nothing but bear. He was bearing it all at the Briar Patch. Hopefully that is not happening down at the St. John's Convention Center. That might be a little bit much for the city and for the province to bear. The Newfoundland Embassy is also doing stuff at the Briar Patch. Now, one story, we're trying to get Jessica McCormick on the line because Jessica, of course, leads the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor. They have a pretty significant interest in what the provincial government does. Jessica's going to give us a call a little bit later on. But the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor has a number of things they would like to see the provincial government address, both in the speech from the throne and in the budget in their ongoing actions. Let me tell you about that. So, Federation of Labor. They have a number of priorities that they laid out in their 2026 budget submission. Stronger labor laws. They want to see the modernization of the Labor Relations Act. They want to continue to strengthen regulations around work or health and safety. They want to make sure that the supports are there for workers who are injured, and that will be music to the ears of many listeners here today. Protecting the public service. Now, this is always a contentious one. Halt the privatization of public assets and increase funding for public health care, education, and essential services. Well, in the preview that we heard earlier from Zach Power, who will be on with us, there was talk of all of that. But we'll get more into this when Jessica joins us. But please now to hop over and speak to Sam Kelly. Sam wants to talk about the Recreation Fishery Bill. Sam, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning, Tim. How are you today? Welcome back for change.
I'm cold. That's how I am, Sam. Cold, but glad we're almost out of winter. I'm sure a lot of people share that sentiment. How about you?
Oh, definitely. Don't want to see no more snow the winter. Tim, what I would like to bring up, I call in several times during the year about what we call it the recreation fishery or the food fishery, whichever anybody wants to call it. The bill that didn't pass in Ottawa there, right, last week.
Yeah, that was brought forward by the Conservatives. That's the one you mean, yeah.
Yes, and now there's no surprise to me that that bill didn't go through, because if you're in the Liberal government, you are not going to pass that PC bill, because the PCs would end up with credit for changing the recreation fishery, because we're after that for years now, trying to get the change. But I am still hoping that the Liberal government will make some changes. And I listened to Tom there on the radio this morning. Yeah, and I didn't like the part when he referred to the commercial fishery, because 80 and 90% of the commercial fishery do not want to see a recreation fishery back, because they always feel that we're taking money out of their pockets. And I don't agree with that part whatsoever. But if the Fishermen's Union is going to have a say with government over the quotas that is going to be coming up for the recreation fisheries. We will not get any changes because they are powerful. There's no doubt about that. And,
Sam, can I just ask? You go ahead, then I have a question for you. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, no, because like I say, they want all those quotas for themselves. They don't want to see a recreation fishery, 80% of them. I know that, right, from being around the bays and talking to people around the bay and things.
So what is the limit, fish limit in the recreational fishery now? Is it 10 or what is it? I don't know off the top of my head. I should.
It's 5 fish per person, and then they say 15 per boat. But that's not so because DFOs have to come out and admit and everything. That's just a safety factor, so people are not out in, I always call it bad tubs and stuff like that, right, with a big crew aboard. That's not safe to be out there because it's only a policy. That's why nobody will ever be charged underneath that. So however many people you have in your boat, if the boat is safe to carry them, if you got, say, 10 people, you're allowed 5 fish each in the boat, not 15. And that part, they never really comes out and clarifies that. It's always there every year, 15 fish per boat, right? And but I really I think that we will get changes sometime. I figure it's probably in about a month or so that the Liberals will make some changes. But when they reopen the cod fishery, Newfoundlanders should have had the first crack at any fish that's in our waters off our shores. Because they turned around, first thing they did, foreign vessels, right off the bat, they got their share.
Yeah, I remember that being an irritant, but sorry, Sam, I was just going to add the context I understand on that is part of the agreement that exists. I get your irritation with it, but I understand it's part of the agreement that was in place when the fishery was reopened, that other NAFO nations get a portion of that, but totally get why people get angry with it.
Yeah, and I understand that part too, right? Noble's here before, right? But we should not be limited to weekends. We should be treated the same as every other province, that they can go out 7 days a week and catch their fish.
Okay.
And what you take in with the recreation fishery, according to what has been reported over the years, is not a fraction of anything that is taken. I worked on with the DFO, and I was out on the Grand Banks with the scientists and everything out there. Mm-hmm. And they said at the time that the recreation fishery don't take not 1% of 1% for the catch for the whole summer throughout the province. And I've seen probably draggers out there taken in one tow would be more than all Newfoundlanders, if every Newfoundlander went out there every day during the week. And just for one tow for some of those big draggers, they take away more fish than that we'll ever catch. And hooking line over the side of the boat is never going to hurt. No. So I just want to make that clear. Right?
Yep. Appreciate the time. Yep. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
All right, that's Sam. He's gone. Look, just the background on what Sam was talking about, if you're not aware, and then we'll go to break. But this is from our VOCM News. This was published on Friday that there had been an opposition motion tabled by MP Jonathan Rowe. It was a private member's motion. They, just for clarity, rarely do they succeed, but what Jonathan Rowe had called for was the extension of the food fishery in Newfoundland and Labrador to 7 days a week from the current 3. Joanne Thompson, the federal Minister of Fisheries, who was one of the 4 Liberal MPs who voted against the motion from Newfoundland and Labrador, her argument was that the bill would have added unnecessary red tape to the process. She says it would have meant new fees that would have added to the cost of monitoring. And her argument was Newfoundlanders and Labradorians shouldn't have to pay to catch cod. Tony Wakeham agrees with Jonathan Rowe. He says the food fishery should be open 7 days, not 3. We'll continue to monitor all of this because, indeed, the recreational food fishery and the commercial fishery are important to so many of us. Okay, time for a break. Back with more of Open Line after that.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Tim Powers here. All right, as I said earlier, the Federation of Labor has a legislative budget agenda and priorities agenda that it's seeking. To talk about that, we're joined by the president of the Newfoundland Labrador Federation of Labor. That is, of course, Jessica McCormick, who I will call Jess because I know her, not out of disrespect. Jess, how are you? How you doing?
I'm good, Tim. I'm just getting over a cold, so I've got a bit of a bad voice for you this morning, but it's a big day with the House of Assembly back in session, so I wanted to give you a call and talk about it.
Yeah, indeed. You and many others, unfortunately, still getting colds and flus. Winter just never leaves us these days, Jess. So what are you looking for? What are you looking for this afternoon in the speech from the throne and the budget, as these are the two big pieces that guide what a government does?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be our first kind of big test or a bit of insight into where our new provincial government is going to be taking things. And you know, for the Federation of Labor, many of the things that we're looking for, the recommendations that we've made during the budget consultation process are consistent with what we've been talking about for the past number of years. This year, we've taken a particular focus around health and safety, making sure that we're making the right investments in occupational health and safety enforcement, in supporting injured workers, and making sure that everybody comes home safe at the end of the day. But there are a lot of, overarching questions that we have about, major projects, Tim, and what that will mean for workers in terms of good union jobs. Everybody's feeling the pinch when it comes to affordability, and I like to say that the best way that we can address the affordability problems that people are facing is to ensure that they have a good paycheck at the end of the day, and that often comes with a union card.
We just saw in Nova Scotia, Jess, as you know, the Houston government brought in their budget, and Nova Scotia, not unlike Newfoundland, facing many of the similar problems, the size of government, they argue, the expenses in running government. And what we saw in Nova Scotia were a number of cuts, particularly in the arts and culture side, but in other areas too. How concerned are you about government going down a right-sizing itself path and adopting a more fiscally conservative agenda?
Yeah, I mean, that is a major concern. I was very disappointed to see Premier Houston's budget and the cuts that it included, particularly on the public sector side of things. I grew up in Cape Breton, so I have an appreciation for how important many of those jobs are. And similarly, in Newfoundland and Labrador, like you said, we are facing these significant challenges when it comes to the debt and deficit. And from my perspective, it always feels like, it's workers who are asked to be the ones to make sacrifices during these really tough times. And then oftentimes on the other side of it, we feel like we're last in line when it comes to reaping the benefits of prosperous times. And so when I think about how do we build a strong economy, how do we ensure that, working people in Newfoundland and Labrador aren't bearing the brunt of these fiscal challenges, well, we need to make sure that they have access to good jobs. And so cutting and gutting in the public service, going down the road of privatization, I don't think bears the fruit that a provincial government thinks it will when it comes to reining in our finances. The public service jobs that we have, and I think Jerry was on the show last week talking about how important those public sector jobs are to workers, but also to delivering the services that people in the province rely on. And what we've seen on the other side of things with, going down the road of privatizing or selling off public assets, is that we don't always get the bang for the buck that we think we will when it comes to privatization, and we lose that, oversight that we can benefit from when something is in the public domain. So I am hopeful, based on what Premier Wakeham said during the provincial election campaign, that that's not the path that he is interested in going down. He spoke a lot about supporting workers. We've spent a lot of time talking to him about our recommendations, about our hopes for future industrial development, and how we can, build a stronger legislative framework that supports workers. So, so far it's my impression that that's not the path that he wants to take, but the big test will be the budget, obviously.
Yeah, just quick follow-up, and then I'll let you go so you can save your voice, because you're going to have a busy couple of days. Are you feeling heard then? I mean, the outcome will be what you see, but so far, do you feel like you're being heard?
Yeah, I certainly do. We've had a chance now to meet with the Premier a couple times, with our new Minister of Labour, Mike Goosney, and just last Tuesday I met with the Finance Minister to go through this budget submission. So certainly feeling like we're being heard, but that needs to, not just be a one-off. It can't just be once a new government is elected. That has to be a consistent and ongoing practice to have, an open, consultative approach. And so if there's one message that I hope is heard in the House of Assembly, it's that workers need that seat at that table and a voice in decision-making about our future, and I hope that Premier Wakeham shares that view.
All right. Feel better, Jess. Appreciate the time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tim. Have a great day.
All right, take care. That is Jessica McCormick, President of the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor. Okay, time for one quick call, though an important issue, so we may carry it over. Carl Slaney, you want to talk about something people rarely talk about these days, environmental protection. What are you thinking?
Good morning, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Fantastic. It's great to get the chance to talk to you. Listen, we
Happy
got
to
some
talk to you.
concerns.
Go ahead.
I'm down here on the Bjorn Peninsula. We've got some concerns about environmental protection. We got a situation down here where, unfortunately, domestic garbage is falling down into the ocean.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
This situation is being discussed the last couple of weeks. I know you're keeping your finger in many pies around the country, but the shortest version of it and the clearest version of it is this. The Fortune Head Ecological Reserve is operated by the Department of the Environment and Climate Change, Province of Newfoundland. That reserve was created in 1994. Prior to 1994, there's an area of the coast that, unfortunately, was a domestic garbage dump site for the town of Fortune.
Okay.
When the geology, the geological features of interest were discovered and gathered enough interest to generate the need for the ecological reserve, unfortunately, the geological feature is only 50 or 60 meters away from this old dump site. So in 1992, the government of the day gave the town of Fortune a bit of money, $50,000 or $60,000, to remediate, bring it up to the standards of that day, which the town did. The reserve was created in 1992, 1993, and the land that was taken by the government of Newfoundland for the reserve included this old dump site.
Okay.
That old dump site has was remediated at the time and has been stable for 20 years. But in recent years, because of climate change, because of the amount of rain we had, because of the high seas we had, because of erosion, the garbage material that was previously buried is now becoming exposed.
Yes. Okay.
This exposure is driven by climate change. So we got a problem, and we're not getting much cooperation from the government of Newfoundland to come down and take responsibility for this. This morning, I'd like to.
Yeah, you got about a minute, Carl. I'll give you a minute. Go ahead, because then I got to go to news. But please go ahead.
Okay. So in a minute, I'm going to tell you about a dump site over on the west coast. The dump site is at Martin Point in Grossmoor National Park. That's a fish habitat area. They're lining up right on the coast. A very parallel situation, but in the situation over there, the garbage did not end up into the ocean, but the conscientious people were fearful that it might. Mm-hmm. So the rules are being applied over on the west coast. Good practices being applied on the west coast, not down here on the Bjorn Peninsula. And in St. John's today, I believe they're waiting for, or they have received a permit to dump snow into the harbor. There's a prohibition for dumping snow into the harbor because there might be some garbage in that snow. Oh. Down here on the Bjorn Peninsula, there's no debate. There's 100,000 tons of garbage in the hill, 100 tons have fallen into the ocean, and there's thousands of tons waiting to fall. So the provincial government, Department of the Environment, Mr. Chris Tibbs, I'd like for you to take responsibility over, explain to us that what's happening in Fortune is perfectly acceptable, and we'll all go on about our busy days.
All right. Well, Carl, I appreciate you flagging it. It's an important issue. We will try and track down Chris Tibbs over the next day or so to get him to respond to that. Thank you. You have a good day. Appreciate the insight on this.
Good man. Thanks for your coverage, and good luck to you.
All right. Thank you. That's Carl Slaney. We will dig into that. We'll see if Chris Tibbs can come on and tell us what his perspective is on what's happening in Fortune. But now, I'm late, but better late than never. Time for news.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
As so much of this audience does, you follow the news. You will know last week there were a number of stories about the role and responsibilities of the company OpenAI when they became aware that the person now charged with the shootings in Tumbler Ridge was searching up things that were very concerning related to acts of violence and having conversations about that on their platform. They informed the authorities, Canadian authorities, after the fact about this, and this has led to a broad public debate about their responsibilities, what they should have done, what they could have done. Canadian government acting very forcefully, at least in language now, to say they're not satisfied with what they've been told. Separately and apart from this, but linked, as it relates to responsibilities of social media companies, Instagram is going to alert parents about their teens' suicide-related searches. It begins this week. It will have application in Canada, the United States, Britain, and Australia. Instagram says it would notify parents if their teenager repeatedly searches for terms related to suicide or self-harm within a short period, as pressure grows from governments to follow Australia's ban on the use of social media for people under 16. Instagram, of course, is owned by Meta Platforms, Inc. They said last Thursday that it would start alerting parents who are signed up to its optional supervision setting if their children try to assess suicide or self-harm content. The alerts will begin this week for those signed up in Canada, the United States, and Britain. These alerts, according to Instagram or Meta, build on an existing platform to help protect teens from potentially harmful content on Instagram. To talk about this and its utility, delighted to be joined by our friend Dr. Janine Hubbard. Of course, Janine, well known to the listeners of VOCM, always helps us dig through issues like this one. She soon will be, she is the incoming president of the Canadian Psychological Association and will be taking on that role in June, I believe. Janine, great to have you. What do you think about Instagram's move here?
Well, like everything, it's tangly and complicated. Because on one hand, it's kind of like, well, okay, that's maybe a step in the right direction, but it doesn't feel adequate. And I look at some of these things. First of all, this is a setup where under 16 and you and your child both know that you have signed up for these additional parental controls. So this probably isn't the target audience that we're worried about in many ways. And I just look at the number of ways people have come up with to circumvent the flags. If you notice, if you're doing anything online, you notice that there are now different ways of referring to particular terminology or words, or and I think as soon as something gets flagged, well, then the community figures out another way to refer to it that doesn't trigger those flags. So it's, like I say, while I appreciate efforts, you'll always hear me come back to we need increased social literacy, social media literacy, AI literacy for everyone, including parents and all of our kids. And it's, I don't know. I mean, I worry about where kids are getting information. I've certainly seen in the past where I've had teens looking up images in particular on harmful behaviors. And I'm not going to get into what types those are because there's many of them.
Yes.
But in some cases, looking for inspiration, looking for comfort, like it's a wild west, and I wish I had better and easier answers for you.
What does the academic literature tell us about the inquiry of suicide and suicidal ideation? Is there often a direct link between, Instagram searches and people taking an action? Do we have what kind of knowledge or information do we have about that, Janine?
I can't tell you good correlational data there. And I think it is also important to remember it's correlational.
Yes.
So certainly someone isn't going to stumble across a post and immediately think, oh, I should engage in that behavior. In the past, people would do Google searches, or they would do, there's always ways of seeking out that information. I do think it's vital that kind of the immediate response that needs to come up with some of that is, here's the kids helpline, here's the suicide hotline, here's the resources. But when you're dealing with cross borders, that also gets really challenging. And the accounts, I mean, in theory, they know the ages of their users, but they don't necessarily. The flip side, and I am going to say this, is, there's some research coming into searching some of the algorithms, and especially in things like ChatGPT, looking, if you do like a large language model analysis, that in some ways it is getting better and better at predicting, okay, what are some casual conversation versus someone who might actually be at imminent risk. We just don't currently have the then ability to provide that immediate intervention or provide those safeguards.
Let's go to the other side of this. So let's say you are signed up and you are a parent and you get these alerts. Probably more helpful for our audience, if you are dealing with somebody who maybe is struggling with their health and their well-being, is going through suicidal ideation, how best to help?
Well, it's important to, again, raise the conversation. And this doesn't just have to be because you've received an alert from your child's social media. Anytime we see kind of changes in behavior, changes in social interaction, more withdrawal, more time kind of alone, and it's tricky because a lot of these are just normal and appropriate teenage behaviors, but it is that checking in, and it is that, hey, I noticed that, you're not spending as much time doing X. Can we talk about that? And maybe there's some really, really valid reasons, like, it got way too competitive and that's not my thing. But it's just kind of having that open, ongoing conversation, making sure, always emphasizing first of all, exploring and finding out about topics is natural curiosity. I'm never going to punish you for trying to find out information, but trying to keep that conversation, open. And sometimes finding out information actually can be very empowering for people, because we've got the flip side of this is suddenly we are Minority Report, where it's been predicted that you are going to act in, you're going to commit criminal activity, and so we're intervening before you have the opportunity. It's that flip side, and I think oftentimes, again, it's having that conversation. And I don't want to make light of any of this, but I think back years ago, I was putting together a presentation on healthy and normal childhood sexual development. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to find, some images to spice up my PowerPoint. And I was doing it on my hospital computer and going, how can I find what I need without getting fired and or having, the special selection of the police come and have conversations with me? So like there can be very legitimate, very appropriate reasons behind things. So I think it's remembering we can't use AI or social media as a therapist. That's not what it's for. It can provide great information, but really being aware of what it can do and can't do, and remembering the importance of human connection and human conversation.
You nailed it there, and I see this all the time. Drop the screen, look into somebody's eyes, connect with them, talk with them, and most people are open to it. You can always make light of, hey, put the screen down. Anyway, Janine, appreciate your time. Always appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us this morning.
I wish I had better magical solutions, but this will be ongoing, and I'm going to keep polishing my magic wand for you, okay?
All right. Well, by the time you're president, I'm sure you will have all kinds of magic to share with us. Appreciate the time, Janine. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. That is Dr. Janine Hubbard. That's such a big issue. Look, I'm a parent. I'm sure we got a lot of parents online. These new streams of worry. And I know Patty used to talk about it. I know Brian, Linda, everybody talks about it. I just want to hit it as well. Like, it's tough out there now. There are always threats and challenges to kids growing up. But the screen, the power of the screen and what you can find on the screens. There's lots of good out there. I'm not a naysayer, but we're all learning. And Janine's message of be more literate ourselves is so vital. This coming from the guy who battles with his son almost daily over the use of the game Roblox. But there you have it. Okay, time for a break. When we come back, more of Open Line, more of your calls, I hope. Looking forward to that. Back in a moment.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
All right, we're just flying along this morning. Got about, 37 minutes if you want to give us a call. But I wanted to get my colleague and friend, Zach Power, on because Zach is covering today's throne speech. But, Zach, before we get to the politics, I love to talk hockey with you. How did Alex Newhook's return go? He came on the ice Thursday. I think he got an assist. You're a diehard Canadiens fan. How are the early games back going for him?
Yeah, I think that he's going to be a huge addition, especially down the stretch for the Canadiens. I'm always hesitant about making opinions. I guess I want to say this early into the season. I know we're getting down to it, but ask me again in April and I'll have a different opinion.
Well, you guys were on track and still are, I think, to make the playoffs. And, of course, trade deadline coming up at the end Saturday, isn't it? March 7th, I believe. Now, last year there was some rumors that Newhook would be on the block, but I'm not hearing any of that this year, are you?
No, I'm certainly not hearing any of that, but I wouldn't want him to go. But, I mean, that's just me. I think Montreal has a lot of bigger fish to fry than moving Alex Newhook. Maybe if it's a part of a goalie trade, that could be something in the cards. But as of now, I don't even think that he's one that's really been on the block.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, Jordan Biddington, the name we keep hearing, of course, backstop the Canadians to the silver medal. Does he replace Sam Mountain-Bowe? That's subject of another day. All right, you are covering the throne speech today along with the VOCM news team. It's the first throne speech, as you've said earlier, of a PC government in nearly a decade. It's Tony Wakeham's first one. What should the listeners expect to hear? What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, it's going to be really based around his blue book that he released in the election back in the fall. I mean, he hasn't really said a whole lot about what he wants to do during this time in the House of Assembly. So this throne speech will really set the tone for what's to come. A big pillars that were in his campaign, as you know and you've heard, is that they want to build, as they say, safer communities, as they say, lower taxes, as they say, better health care. So they're going to have to move a lot on that during this sitting of the House of Assembly if they want to live up to some of those promises. And that'll be one of the things that I'll be looking for in this throne speech, because these throne speeches, for anybody who doesn't know, this is really where they set the tone of what's to come. Last time around, rather, it was a lot about fiscal responsibility. We could see a little bit of that this time around as well. We know that the election campaign had a lot of spending, and it's going to be tough to keep up with a lot of that spending, especially given the deficit that they're in, and that will undoubtedly be part of that.
Indeed, and with the along with the throne speech, the budget is the most significant. Two of the most significant government policy documents that the public can see. We've heard Mr. Wakeham say doesn't have a budget date yet, but we'll get one shortly. I mean, I guess the other thing, Zach, are we going to expect to hear anything more on the Churchill Falls MOU in this throne speech? I mean, I'm sure we will hear a little bit about what Tony Wakeham thinks about the path towards making Churchill Falls economically beneficial for Newfoundland, but what are we hearing about that?
And I'm not sure entirely if that's one of those front burner topics that he's really into, right? The Liberals, of course, have been really hard on Tony Wakeham to accept the deal as is, and we know the situation in Quebec right now is pretty rough, to say the least, in terms of getting that MOU passed through and Francois Legault's party and whatnot. But I really think that he's really waiting for this April benchmark, I should say, this goalpost in April, where they're going to complete that independent review. Then they're going to sit down and have a look at it. So I don't know entirely if this is going to be something that's going to be on the front burner, at least in the first, I want to say month, because we really do have about 3 weeks before budget time, and then budget time is going to be almost a second half of the session, more or less, if they remain open. So that's going to be interesting to see exactly what they do in terms of the MOU, but I really can't see much mention of the MOU, but it's certainly not out of the cards.
Yeah. Now, what has been fascinating for me to watch is Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston. And Tony Wakeham just spoke at the Nova Scotia PC convention at the invitation of Tim Houston. Tim Houston brought in a budget last week, a tough budget. He public service cuts to the public service at a $1.2 billion deficit. They made 5% cuts to the civil service every year for 4 years and 3% cuts over the same period for the broader public service. Our balance sheet is not very much different from Nova Scotia. Mr. Wakeham has talked about, reinvigorating healthcare, changing, making sure it's more effective in the way it serves Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Are we going to see any foreshadowing of cuts? Is that something that's on the agenda? Because that would seem to be a reality they have to deal with.
Yeah, and it certainly is. Going through that Nova Scotia budget, lots of cuts there, and New Brunswick also delivered something similar, where they've also delivered some of the same. So maybe he's looking to some of those more counterparts in the Maritimes or in Atlantic Canada, saying, okay, well, looks like they've had to do it, we're going to have to as well. The big thing will be Memorial University, of course. That was a big piece in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. There was large cuts towards some of the institutions and how much money they received. That'll be a big piece of what I'm looking for, at least coming into budget time. And obviously that's another topic way down the road of what will and will not be in the budget. But yeah, like I said, it will be a lot of cutting and slashing and dashing to try to get back to a fiscally responsible state, or back to a state where we're a little bit closer to the zero mark on our deficit. We know this year it started with about $600 million, and it's now nearly $1 billion. Some tobacco money was thrown into that as well. That's another topic as well.
Yes,
but
how it was accounted for is an issue. Yes.
Yeah, and so that, and the PCs had grave concerns with that during the last session of the House of Assembly. If you remember, they accused the Liberals of cooking the books at the time, something they've since taken back. But that's something that they're now inheriting. Right, so that's going to be something that they're going to have to deal with, and that's going to be part of this throne speech as well. Is they're going to outline that we are in a tough financial state, no doubt about it.
And you'll have all the coverage here. Speech starts at 2:00. I assume you'll get an embargoed copy, so some reporting not long after they start. Zach, appreciate the time as always. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, that is our Zach Power. Stay tuned to VOCM for the coverage of the throne speech. As I say, yeah, it's a government speech, but it's an important one. It'll give you a sense of where Premier Wakeham is hoping to take Newfoundland and Labrador and its government, so stay tuned to us for all the coverage. And stay tuned here. We got a half an hour. Want to hear from you over the next half an hour on Open Line. Back shortly.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Oh, we got 26 minutes, and I'm waiting for you to call. We've got lots of things to talk about today. What about this one? Because this has been one that we have covered on our show in the afternoon. It is one that still lingers because it's important, I think, to a lot of people, at least in the city and beyond the city, and that is there's going to be a special meeting of the Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Arts Society in a couple of weeks to get the organization back on track structurally and to talk about what would be the 50th Folk Festival. The first on order at the March 15th meeting will be to elect an interim board of directors, said Jean Houston, who says several, including her, have committed to putting their name on the ballot. This summer would mark the festival's 50th anniversary, but whether that will happen and what it would look like remains uncertain. One of the ideas being thrown around, doing a 49th and a half. That's actually a pretty good idea. Having something scaled down, but we'll have to be celebrating the 50th at some point down the road. That is, again, Jean Houston, who was speaking there. I've talked to Jean before. I've talked to people associated with the Folk Arts Festival. I think it's an important thing, but it's hard to run these things, and you got to be fiscally accountable. I don't know the ins and the outs here and what went right and what went wrong and who's to blame and who's not, and there's got to be accountability for all of that. But I do know over the years, living in that part of town, it was always an important summer gathering, and it gave us a place and a space to watch up-and-comers, have conversations, share ideas, and lo and behold, have a bit of fun. And we like to have our bits of fun, so we'll be watching what happens with the interim board of directors and the like, because I think we need that. But if you've got a thought on that, by all means, give us a call. I know that part of the city, that part of downtown around the Colonial Building, the old Colonial Building, has had lots of conversations because we did have a tent city there at one point. We have the Loop there, which in and of itself has generated conversations in the past. It's such a central hub. It's so historical and so vital. Love to hear your take on it, particularly if you're somebody who lives in that neighborhood. Government House, of course, is next door. So lots going on there, and Venice is across the street. Oh, the old Venice Pizzeria. My God. I think my pizza addiction first began there. I remember those Venice pizzas, laden with all kinds of treats. The pepperoni just cooked the right way, and there was a little bit of cooking oil, a little bit of pizza sauce that'd drip over. Oh, I'm getting hungry thinking about it. So lots to talk about in that area. I want to go back to the budget, though, because if you're not going to talk to me, I'm going to talk to you. And what am I going to tell you about? So let's go into this Nova Scotia budget, because, again, I don't know what Premier Wakeham is going to do. It is only me who is making the reference to what has happened in Nova Scotia and what could happen in Newfoundland and Labrador. I am not privy to anything that Premier Wakeham is doing, but like everybody else, I just watch for regional trends. And as you heard Zach say, New Brunswick also is looking at tightening its straps. But last Monday, the finance minister in Nova Scotia released their budget. He warned about tough decisions ahead and the need to look inward. This could be language we appropriate. And the $19 billion budget makes 5% cuts to the civil service every year for 4 years and 3% cuts over the same period for the broader public service. Something like that coming our way. We'll talk more about that. But right now, we've got Bill on the line, and Bill wants to talk speeding. Bill, what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, I listen to your show in the evenings, and I enjoy it.
Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, most of the time. Hey, I'll take most of the time. That's all right.
Yeah. No, I find it pretty entertaining, pretty good.
Good, man.
Listen, I was going to Are you related to any, like, remember the Newfoundland Margarine Company? Or
Yeah, that's my mother. Debbie's my mother. George is my grandfather.
Right. You know, like I remember, because I lived in that area, and I'm just getting off a little topic, but I just wanted to ask you about that. But, you know, they used to have a beautiful garden in the front and that rock wall, and it was...
she still has it.
Like, and I was saying to someone this morning, I said, I think they had their own gardener there, you know? The guy, whoever looked after everything there.
Well, Bill, here's the thing. Now, if she's listening, I'll be in trouble afterwards. For years, Mom was the main gardener. Now she's kind of more oversight. She has a little bit of help doing it. I think the Bowerings boys help her out. But her garden is her pride and joy. She'll be delighted that somebody called about that. And I can tell you, seeing some of the plans for the spring and the summer, there'll be another one up this year.
Yeah, but I was talking about the gardens in front of the old factory there on the market.
Oh, in front of the factory, yeah. Sorry. No, I don't know. Yes, they did. You're right. The factory, I did have, when my grandfather was there and Roger Crosby was there, I think, after my granddad, for a while, they did have a gardener there because, again, I think that's where my mother's love of gardening came from. They took pride in, you know, having it look good. I remember those gardens as a kid. Good memory, man. That's. Thank you for taking me back to that time.
I really enjoyed that. And, you know, when the, you know, all got tore down, and there's no comparison now there. That was a real nice piece of work there, you know. And,
it was beautiful. I remember it was a bit of a rock. As you said, there were rocks there and colors that worked, particularly in that part of town. And they took great pride in it.
Yeah, that's my old part of town. But what I wanted to talk was Linda was talking. I think he was talking Friday about. I think it was a man called. He was a wildlife guy, or they were talking about poaching and things, you know, and the food fishery and. But he mentioned that one of the big part of deterrence for infraction was actual presence. You know, just the idea that someone is going to be there, and that kind of it creates kind of like a halo effect. You know, people just won't do things that are wrong. You know, and that brings me to the speeding. And I think Linda mentioned speeding. You know, she said yes, that's true. She said if police are on the road, you know, they're driving back and forth, and people tend to, you know, behave themselves a little bit better, you know, because, you know, people can't really, you know, I mean, they may police themselves, but I mean, you know, that's the whole idea of a police is that you need policing, and I just want to tie that into, you know, like into the outer ring road, you know, there's you know, there's a lot of cars use that, and I think it's important that people, you know, follow the posted speed. I think, you know, that's be important for safety, you know.
You're right on deterrence, too. It's funny, right? I'm very conscious of this because I do a lot of highway driving. And as soon as you catch sight of a police officer, obviously you don't want to put a speeding ticket. You take it down a notch. And the deterrence does matter. I know there's big debates in a lot of parts of the country, including Newfoundland and Labrador, about speed cameras in speeding zones speed markings in school zones, and it's so true. If people see that there's somebody watching them, they're more likely to behave. The challenge, as we can both appreciate, is not having, you know, we don't have the resources to do that everywhere.
Yeah, okay. I was like, you know, because like down on the War Memorial now, I mean, there's a couple of security guards there around the clock, you know, and so like you know, that's kind of like a deterrence. And I think there should be, and you know, we have police that are they're assigned for traffic patrol. You know, they're already being paid for, and I think they should be, you know, like should be up on the outer ring road. There's 40,000 vehicles up there every day, and so, you know, it just behooves that there's so much of the public up there. I mean, if we can have like, if you want to call it a police presence on the War Memorial, then maybe we should have a police presence up in the outer ring road. You know, like they're already on staff. You know, and I mean, you know, there's a couple of, you know, like I usually stop into Tim Hortons and have a coffee like at 8:30 and 8:30 in the morning and stuff. And you know what? I hate to say it, but I mean, there's like 3 or 4 times, like I've seen 4 squad cars in the parking lot. I'm not going to say which one or anything like that, but and 4 or 5 guys sitting down at 8:30. That's peak time. People are driving. I'm thinking, hey guys, get up on the highway, and help save someone's life. There's a time for a coffee break, but
of course,
I don't think it's a peak time there. Make for 10 or 11 o'clock. Have your coffee. Everyone deserves a coffee break, but I think that's
and we don't know. To be fair, in that circumstance, just to interject there, because I know, as I'm sure you do, a few of the RNC guys. They're all the ones I know, good guys. Mike Summers, head of the union, good fella. Who knows if there are other cars patrolling at the time? I assume there are, because not everybody goes on coffee break at the same time. But your point, if it's not just you who are in there having your coffee, you all see the officers that are in there, and yep, they're entitled to a break. And maybe they can think about that when they go for breaks, about how it looks, because sometimes how it looks creates a story for them to clean it up afterwards.
Yeah, no, I don't begrudge it at like a coffee break, but it's the time. That's peak travel time. Like between 7:30 and 9:30 in the morning, it's the wrong time to take one.
Yeah.
And I mean, there might be other cars up there, but I think they should be there. They should be on the road, and they should be providing that deterrence, because people can't really police themselves in a situation like that. That's their job.
No,
anyway,
most
I just wanted to say I had to mention about that garden over there.
I love
it was a beautiful. It was a really nice addition, to the city. The factory and that, and I was just trying.
I'm glad you
did.
Up there. I'm glad you did. And I know the people who did work up there, to your point, loved seeing it too. It makes you feel better. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff about, when you see things, sunlight, flowers, it helps you. And you cheered me up today, Bill. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for giving us a ring today.
Okay, take care now.
All right, take care. That was Bill. We had a great conversation. Oh, that garden was amazing. I remember it as a kid, and I think, as I said, that shaped how my mother gardens, and she loves her gardens, and her gardens are incredible. She's won a few awards, and she never did it for all of that, but she certainly enjoys the joy that flowers and well-honed gardens provide. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll have about 10 or so minutes left when we call back. Give us a ring. Get in for the last few words here on this Monday. Back in a moment.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
All right, we got about 9 minutes left. If you want to call, give us a call. But first, I'm going to bring on my colleague and friend, Beth, because Beth got a call from a caller. That's who you get a call from, I guess, Beth, who's got some information to pass on. She's looking for something, Beth?
Yeah, well, actually, she found something.
Oh, she found something.
She's being a very kind person, a good Samaritan, if you will. Yes, caller Robin, she found a shave bag with a bunch of personal contents in it. I don't think it was anything too, big, but a small shave bag in the Stavanger Drive area, and she just wanted to put it out there in case there's someone out there who is missing it. Of course, she doesn't want to put her personal contact information on air, so we can get you in contact with Robin if you think this shave bag might be yours. So give us a call, 273-5211, if you think this might be your lost shave bag. Fear not, Robin has found it for you.
Well, you know why? We don't want you. Listen, you got to shave. I know. You know the calls, Beth. When I was on TV, I was still on TV every now and then. They still let me on. My father would call me every time I didn't shave, and he'd say, "Oh, they don't have razors in Ottawa." So, how nice was that, eh? I mean, my goodness.
I wouldn't call it nice, but we all have certain words.
We all have parents. Now, look, before I let you go and get maybe one of those last calls, you are younger than I am. God bless you. Have you been taking in any of the curling? Are you going to take in any of the curling?
I haven't been physically to any of the events, but I have been watching a little bit on TV at home for sure. You know, of course, you got to watch Gushu and his last Briar. Oh my gosh, it's a big deal. And certainly a big deal here in St. John's and across the island, I think. So you never know. I think I would like to go down to the Patch and check it out.
Oh,
that's where the party
going
is, right?
down to the Patch. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go back and patch people in.
Perfect.
7 minutes if you want to call. But speaking of the Briar, you guys know tonight, no doubt, and some of you may be there now, because there's 3 draws during the day, which is awesome. I know a lot of people have come to town for it. I think if I remember, they're at 9:30 local time, 2 p.m. local time. It's 7:30 local time. And again, if my memory is right, at 7:30 tonight, it's Newfoundland versus Newfoundland as Brad Gushu takes on Nathan Young. I said this at the beginning of the show, but I am quietly cheering for this match also later on in the tournament, perhaps in a championship. That would be awesome. I mean, we're all nothing against Nathan Young. He is young. He's 23. He's clearly got a bright curling future ahead of him, and he gets all the love and support we can give him. But it's hard not to have Brad as your sentimental favorite. It's his last Briar. He won his first Briar in Newfoundland 9 years ago. He's had an incredible run. He's got a book coming out, Hometown. I mean, there's a storybook in here to be written. And his book is coming out, but there's another chapter he could add, maybe a second book coming with all of that. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I want to go back to something we spoke about earlier, which we'll be covering in news. We did have Greg Noseworthy, the Ward 3 councillor, on. And Greg, of course, spoke about the latest updates on snow clearing, basically that they're moving ahead, things are getting done. He spoke about the concern that many of you have raised with us, which is some of the community mailboxes not being accessible, as he pointed out, and as a caller pointed out. These are federally run properties, and Tom Osborne, I believe, has been on about this, and they're trying to get them clean as quick as they can. But there is a story out, you can find it on our news, that private contracts to help clear snow and widen streets in St. John's neighborhood have had to be extended, but the final cost won't be known for some time. The city last week awarded 3 contracts totaling $3.5 million to help clear higher elevations like Southlands, Kenmount Terrace, and Airport Heights. Greg Noseworthy said in the news story that it hoped the work could be completed today, but it's expected to continue for a few more days. And as Councillor Noseworthy said, curb to curb, it's less of a defined science and more of an art to make sure we're opening these roads. Indeed it is. And on top of that, as we heard in the weather, it is going to be cold. Though that doesn't necessarily mean snow clearing will be impeded, I will tell you that it does put some challenges on the equipment, because extensive cold weather, look at that, extensive cold weather can impact engines, it can impact batteries, and hopefully it doesn't impact what's happening at home, and hopefully we get a few days where snow is not falling and the work can be done. I have had on our program Dave Neal and other people from the weather office, and we have a standing joke that Dave is our most favored guest these days, because he's been on so often talking about all of the weather challenges that are out there and the snow that has fallen. And look, it's only March 2nd. I am not a snow whisperer. I don't have much knowledge about anything, but I don't suspect we are going to be scot-free of snow in March. I'm sure many of us have memories of many a March snowstorm. I remember going to Memorial and March break. Sometimes we would actually go out to Corner Brook when Marble Mountain was working more effectively than, say, it does now, and ski and the like. So March is usually a month of snow in Newfoundland and Labrador. All right, 2 minutes, going, gone if you don't call now. But here's what we're going to do for tomorrow. We are going to follow the throne speech of today, obviously. And anything that's important to you, to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, we'll bring to the table. We're going to want to talk about that. Our news team, as you know, will be there. Zach, Power, Richard, others, Linda, covering this today. So stay tuned for all of that. I know there are already a couple of organizations who've put their hand up to say we want to come on tomorrow to talk about the snow clearing. They may want to come and talk about the snow clearing. They want to talk about the throne speech, so we will have all kinds of coverage around that. We'll continue to monitor what's happening globally in Iran, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about because it's your show and there is lots going on out there, and we'll see if we can get some new material on what's happening at the Briar. We'll reach out to that this afternoon. Greg Smith is sitting in for me on the Tim Power Show. Listen to Greg. He always has great content and great guests. And Claudette gets a week off from me. Beth has to deal with me this week. I'm not really that bad, but I can be a bit of a pain in the butt, as do you. Anyway, that's Open Line for today. Delightful to be with you all week. Let's keep the calls coming and the conversation going. For now, I'm Tim Powers, back tomorrow with more of Open Line.